What if you could turn simple cardstock into something textured, foiled, and full of dimension in just a few steps? I'm Deepa from DeeZinesByD, and today I'm walking you through exactly how to do it, plus there's a special discount code waiting for you. So first of all, I want to go through the products that we're going to be using to create the beautiful cards, which I just showed you. I'm using the Altenew Craft Your Light kit from the April 2026 release. This is called Fruits and Flowers, and there's so much to it. It's just going to blow your mind. So now we have all of the products. I've got the die set, the Fruits and Flowers die set, and you can see that it has a ton going on. You've got a bunch of fruits, pineapple, apple, bananas, a whole bunch of stuff. And then you've also got a bowl and like a mesh bag, which you can kind of show the the fruits inside of it. Then we've got this stamp set, which has some wood grain stamps and then also some foliage and a bunch of sentiments. Now keep in mind there is a coordinating add-on die set where you can cut out some of the foliage and then all of the larger sentiments. So that's something to take into account. And then we've also got this beautifully textured embossing folder. This is going to be part of the star of our show today. And then I've also got this stencil set here, which has all the flowers in it. Now, I'm not going to be using that in today's video. However, I did use it on 3 cards, which is in a giveaway post that I have on my Instagram account. There's a link down below. You can go and check that out. Today is the last day to enter, so go ahead and go and comment on that post. I've also got my exclusive discount code for you here today. It is Deepa Bundle. Enter that code after you've added the dimensional foam tape bundle, which includes 4 dimensional foam tapes from Altenew, and get 30% off your the tape bundle. So anyways, I'll go ahead and show that code again near the end so that you don't forget. But let's get started with our embossing of these cards. So I've got 2 panels here. I've got one 5.5 by 4.25 panel. I'm just going to emboss that with the embossing folder, and then I've also got a circle which I just die cut with any old circle die, and now I've embossed it, and they both have this gorgeous texture to it. So that's not all we're going to be doing. We're going to be adding some of this foil relief paste that Altenew released last month. And this is where we're going to get that beautiful foiled texture. So all I'm doing is just using a little bit with my finger, and I'm just lightly kind of spreading it over the texture on the card. Okay, I'm not overdoing it and putting too much on. This is why I'm using my finger. It's just a thin layer, and because you're using a thin layer, it's not going to take as long to dry. So I think this paste recommends 3 to 4 hours or so. That's if you're doing like a thick stencil paste type thing. This is only going to probably need an hour or so. Now once that is dry, you'll notice that the paper kind of curls up a little. That is an indicator, and the paste goes clear, and then it has a bit of tack to it. Now all you have to do is grab some foil. I am using Altenew gold foil, and you stick it on, pull it off, and that beautiful foil comes off onto your cardstock there, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. Now you'll notice I am applying the foil multiple times. Keep in mind this is a textured background, so there are areas where you might have to press a little harder and get that foil in there to make sure that it's really kind of coming off on all the sticky bits. And also you can determine that you've kind of gotten all the foil in all the places you need it to by touching the top of it. If you notice any more tackiness to it, then you need to add more foil to cover that relief paste. If it's completely just dry, then you know you've done a good job. Now moving on, we are grabbing the dies here, and I am simply just going to cut all of the ones that I want out on some white cardstock. And I actually cut, I think, all of the fruits, the bowl, and the mesh bag, except for the bananas. So I used all of the dies except for the dies for the bananas, which I think are 2 dies. Everything is cut out of white because I didn't want to get a whole bunch of different colored cardstocks and figure that out. That was just not the mood I was in today. So I went ahead and I just cut it out of white, and then I find the right colors of inks, and then I just can add the inks in whichever way I want. And the other benefit to this is that you can add your ink and you can add another layer of dimension here without actually adding physical dimension. And you can do that by layering your ink colors. So start off, you'll notice like on that top layer of the pineapple, I used like a deep yellow, and then I added some browns, and it was just a deeper brown from like the bottom right corner. That creates so much dimension, leading up to a lighter browny yellowy color because of that change in tone, right? So I did the same thing with the pineapple leaves. I used like a lighter green on the bottom layer dye and then a darker green on the top. I did actually mix the middle leaf frond. I did like a darker color towards the tops of the tips and a lighter at the bottom. Same thing with the apple. So I used more of the red on the left side and lightened it up as I got to the right to create kind of that shine you would get on the apple. And I did the same thing with all of these die cuts. And just by adding those layers of different tones of ink, you create a lot of dimension. Now I'm going ahead and I'm assembling these guys one by one. I've got the pineapple done here. It's pretty simple. You just layer the two top layers on the bottom and then the leaves on the top. And they all pretty much follow the same idea. There is the layering guide that's included in the packaging. It's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, you don't really need to look at the layering guide, maybe just to line up certain things. Like, for example, on this orange, it took a little bit more, but it generally comes together really easily, and this also creates another level of dimension. Now, I glued these all together pretty much just with liquid glue, but if you wanted to create more dimension, you can add some foam adhesive behind it, and it really will make your fruit kind of pop. Maybe just add the adhesive on the top layer or the second to top layer, and you'll see how different that dimension on your fruits becomes. Now, I decided not to add that extra dimension because I've got a lot going on these cards, so I thought I'd keep it just a little bit more simple. You'll notice that I did add a little bit of foam adhesive on the bowl there, and that is probably all I added to the die cuts. Now, moving on, I want to show you this neat technique to kind of help you with your stamping and just make it go a little faster. I'm adding these foliage bits, but I'm only adding it to the left side of the stamp wheel plate. You'll notice I've added a line there. Everything to the left, I'm adding it, and I've added a cardstock piece, which is basically the exact size of the opening of the stamp wheel. I'm going to go ahead and condition my stamps and add my inks. Now, I'm doing this first step bit by bit just to get an idea of what colors I want on my stamps. So I'm going to go ahead and one by one, I'm going to stamp out the lilac, or sorry, the lavender, and then I'm going to stamp out the leaf fronds separately just for me to get an idea. And then once I know what colors I'm using on what, then all I'm going to do is turn the plate 180 degrees. I'll add my inks to it and then flip it over and stamp it on the opposite side of the cardstock so that everything is in the exact same position. However, I've doubled up my images and it takes less time. So when using this technique, it's really imperative that you don't move your stamps. And I'm saying this not only because it'll give you that second set of images, but also because I have another trick to use when we're doing the die cutting, which is going to make this whole cutting out all the foliages thing, stamping and cutting, much easier. So now I've got my Altenew stamp cleaner, and it's imperative to clean these stamps in between just because when you put them down again, it's going to create a mess. I do have one of the lavender stamp, which I'm going to just stamp an extra set here on either side of these just because I want like a little more of the lavender. So I did move this at the end so everything from the original 4 pieces stays in one place. So I'm going to be making 2 cards here. So I've done this once on white cardstock, and then I'm going to do this exact same process again, but on the yellow cardstock, which is the same yellow that we use for that textured circle and the background that we use the embossing folder with. So now here's my second tip. I'm using the dies and I'm going to line them up on this first side here, and I'm going to tape them so that the tape overlaps. Then when I take them off, I'm going to take it off in one piece so that I can reattach it. You'll notice one of the lavender pieces, it did come off. That's okay. But I still have those other 3 intact, which makes cutting everything out easy. And this works because everything was in the same position. We didn't move those stamps, right? So these amazing tips come in handy to just speed your process along. Now I've got the Timeless Sentiments 2 die set, and I'm grabbing the Smiles and the Sending Sentiment. I'm going to cut those out of brown and then the same yellow cardstock to create my sentiments for my 2 cards. I'm grabbing the stamp set and I'm stamping out some sub sentiments to kind of go with those larger die cut sentiments. One of them I did partially stamp, so I only got the word sending. And then the second one was sunshine your way. So I partially stamped both of those stamps in order to work with the dies, and you can always do that. And the thing is that the Altenew sets all work in this way because they have some generic placing of certain words like sending, happy birthday, like all these ones. This is why it works together with the dies that they have. So keep that in mind, and you can always use that on your cards. It creates a better look and dimension. Now I am going ahead and I am assembling this card. So I've got a white piece of, a white cardstock card base. It is top folding and it is the A2 size, so 5.5 by 4.25. I've added the circle with some craft foam. I just placed like pieces in the back because I just didn't want to cut out a circle. I don't know why, but that's what I did. I think I was using up some scrap foam pieces. It works because it's a larger piece. You don't have to worry about it being too sturdy. Or at least the edges for anything falling off. The main image is in the center of the circle, so it's okay. I've gone ahead and I have attached the bowl where I've placed the apricot, sorry, not the apricot, the peach, the orange and the apple. I did attach that with foam adhesive, so that gives it some dimension. And it helps when tucking these foliage bits in the back. So I only added like 3 small little foam pieces to it. And that gives me space to tuck these foliage bits in. So I can tuck them in nicely. You can cut them off if you want to, and you still have some space for them to kind of stick out. I'm adding them in the top left coming out of the bowl, and then I'm going to add some in the bottom right below the bowl. I've got the sending smile sentiment there. I don't actually know, did I attach that yet? I think I did attach that. Again, I attached that with some foam adhesive, and you'll notice that I attached the sending there, so it says sending smiles, and it just comes together really nicely. So we're just going to go ahead and finish adding all these foliage bits, and then the last thing we're going to do is add a bit of bling, and we're going to do that using the Altenew Gem Sparkles in Amethyst. So I'm going to add some of those lighter purple gems there to kind of match the lavender and pull out some of that purple from our design, because we have lots of yellows and oranges and those types of tones going on. So let's work with the purple. And that is the final card for this first card that I'm putting together. And you can see that gold foil texture in the background, which is very pretty. Moving on to card number 2, I'm going to go ahead and grab my card base. Again, this is 5.5 by 4.25 side folding. The textured foiled piece that we embossed and added foil to in the beginning, I did cut that down a little bit more, so I cut 1/4 of an inch off the top and the side to give me a nice 1/8 of a border around all edges. I'm adding 1 piece of craft foam and then attaching this behind to give that piece some more dimension. Then I've got the sentiment here. I'm grabbing my Altenew scissors and I'm just going to cut a slit on the G. So the fun creative part from this card is I'm going to have that mesh bag kind of hanging from that curvy bottom part of the G to kind of give it a nice fun creative feel. And once I put this on, I will be able to remove the bag and then reposition things to kind of figure out how my fruits are going to go inside the bag. I'm just going to add some tape adhesive to the back of that mesh bag and then just kind of stick these fruit behind it and then layer them one by one. I'll put them together. I'll add some foam adhesive to the back of this and then hook it onto the G and attach it kind of in an angled direction there to make sure it fits on the card and gives it a bit of movement there, kind of like it's hanging off that G. And then I also have one more piece, which is the orange, which I forgot. I'm just going to stick this in behind there to go with this group of fruiting is what I'm going to call it. I have the sub sentiment here. I'm just making sure it fits. I'm cutting it down to size, but I'm not going to attach it yet until I add all the foliage bits, which I'm going to have hanging kind of out of the top right of the sending sentiment and then on the bottom left of it too. So keep in mind that sending sentiment, I did add some small foam squares to it, just 3 again. I like to space them out, and then this gives me some leeway to kind of tuck those foliage bits in behind. And that's basically the strategy I use with anything where I'm tucking foliage bits behind it. Even flowers where you have a focal point flower and then you got to add the leaves behind it. I'll add that focal point flower with some foam adhesive. Just one piece in the center is all you really need to position it. And then you can add all your foliage around it. And if you really want and you don't think that foam piece is enough to keep it in place, you can actually just add some more foam around it after you've placed all your foliage to give it just a bit more rigidity and make sure everything's going to stay together. So there's always that option there. So now that I've got all my foliage pieces basically placed, I'm going to go ahead and grab that sub-sentiment, and just with some liquid glue, I'm going to attach it there with a little bit of it kind of tucked underneath the sending sentiment. So it says sending sunshine your way, and it comes together really nicely. I'm going to finish this off with some more Altenew Gems sparkles using the Milky Way color. This is white, just like the mesh bag. It pulls on that white color from the bag and it brings everything together, creating my final card today. I hope that these cards have inspired you to create something similar, and you've taken my tips for creating a faster creative journey on top of all of the texture and dimension that these cards provide. Don't forget that we have that promotional code DEEPA bundle. Add the foam tape bundle with the 4 foam tapes to your cart and then put in the code in order to get the 30% discount. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, do comment on my Instagram post if you want to be entered to win that $20 gift card. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye.